Alright, what's going on, guys? So, we got a little bit to talk about in terms of Elden Ring today. There's been a lot of news going around about a possible delay, and I want to address that and why I think that is not the case. We also have an update about that 6-second clip that got leaked yesterday, and then I want to take some time and discuss Elden Ring's marketing strategy and pose some questions as to why they're choosing to go down this route of complete silence. But as always, guys, before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Elden Ring news and for some other cool Souls videos that I think you'll enjoy. Alright, so to start the video off, we have a little bit of bad news. If you remember that 6-second clip that surfaced a few days ago? Well, turns out we got played because the video is fake. Now, the video that you see in this leaked clip turns out to be the work of an indie 3D artist that somebody took and flipped and decolorized and then slapped that logo over. And honestly, I gotta give them props because they had everybody fooled. Even Mordecai reported on this. And there were articles coming out everywhere talking about it. But unfortunately, we did get fooled. Okay, and now to move on to the next topic. So, if you've been scouring the internet for Elden Ring, you've probably seen a lot of these articles talking about a possible delay of the game and referencing the Kadokawa earnings report. Now, the source that they're gathering this information from comes from a little piece in the earnings report talking about the impact of COVID-19 on their earnings for the fiscal year, and specifically a section about games, where it mentioned delayed development of new works. And I think a lot of people and these journalists are vastly blowing this out of proportion and taking it out of context of the overall parent company, because this is not Fromsoftware's earning report, this is Kadokawa. And a big reason that they've been hopping on this is because it talks about a delay in earnings until March of 2022, and I believe this is vastly being misrepresented. We have to take into account that gaming actually takes a very small percentage of Kadokawa's earnings. If we take a look at their actual earnings over the past 4 years, we can see a steady incline of earnings up until the pandemic hit. And if you'll notice, there's no direct correlation with Fromsoftware releases, and we can even look at March of 2019, right after Sekiro released, they're reporting their highest loss per share. So it doesn't make any sense to be looking at the earnings and comparing that to Fromsoftware releases. As I mentioned in the last video, the thing that speaks the most to me is that section about Elden Ring in the investors report, where it talks about it being a main priority in the next fiscal year. It's also important to note that Fromsoftware is only one of many of the gaming companies that Kadokawa owns. And when it represents such a tiny percentage of revenue for the overall company, when they actually do mention it to their investors, I think that speaks volumes. I find it completely unreasonable to assume that all that they're talking about in that delay is Elden Ring. And even if it was, it's talking about until March of 2022. And that's when we're expecting the game to come out anyway. So I really don't think Elden Ring has been delayed, and even if it has, I think it's already happened. Insiders have been saying that this game has been in development since before Sekiro, so I don't think that now would be the proper time to delay the game, because it's probably not in its initial stages anymore. Personally, if I think a delay were to happen, it would have been after they showed the trailer in 2019, and that's the reason we haven't heard anything. Because, as you know, if you're a Fromsoftware fan, they don't like to be quiet about their games. I don't think if the game was experiencing a major delay right now that it would have been talked about in the investors report, but it really causes me to raise a question of why are they being so silent. I really don't understand why we haven't had any transparency on what stage of development the game is in, and honestly I really don't believe that silence is their marketing strategy, even though you could say that it is working for them. I just don't see why they haven't said anything, I really don't. And while this is generating more hype in the community, I think all it's doing is putting more pressure on Fromsoftware, and realistically I don't see how telling the community what stage of development you're at would have any negative effect. For example, another game that I'm really excited for that's kind of going through the same thing is Metroid Prime 4. When Metroid Prime 4 first got announced at E3 2017, people were so excited because we hadn't had a Metroid Prime game since 2007. But unfortunately, 2 years later in 2019, they announced that they had to completely scrap all development they had made on the game and completely restart. But the interesting thing about this is that the community took this extremely well. People were praising Nintendo left and right, saying this was an amazing move for them, and a step in the right direction for gaming as a whole. But just like with Elden Ring, ever since then it's been complete radio silence. So if the community can take an announcement saying the game has been completely restarted, well, then I don't see why all these companies don't just have some transparency in which stage their game is in. But this has just kind of been my rant about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it and let me know your thoughts. Why do you think we haven't had any transparency whatsoever about this game? Do you think their silence has been a good thing, and if so, why? But anyways guys, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.